Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Azerbaijan Grand Prix post-race Chinwag roll intro. I'm gonna try and make this sound a little bit more excited than the race actually was. Look, sport sometimes gives you 0-0 board draws, okay? It happens, and unfortunately, a track that typically delivers bangers, it's not what we got, is it? Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining me at a very different time as well. Typically, I don't do these in the evening. Couple of reasons. Obviously, a bit of an earlier race, UK time anyway. But also, I'm up early tomorrow morning. I'm doing a track day tomorrow, which will be fun. But it means I'm going to be out, and I'd rather just get this done now because ultimately, this ain't going to be long. All right. There's not much to talk about from the race itself. There's some other things to talk about, but all in all, we're not going to dwell too much on this one, okay? We've got Miami next weekend. We'll move on from this one quickly. This one will not live long in the memory. Still getting ads, Rivet Head. Interesting. I have turned that option off. That is odd, but never mind. Thank you all for coming. Welcome TJ, Nick, Cameron, Cassandra, ZX, Diego, Adaptive, Mads, Thomas, Slarpy, Danae, Bass, Cena, Dees, Dex, Incredible-ish, Michael, Rivet Head, of course, Jamie, two Jamies. Double Jamie. Chris, Sarah, Priceless, Mile, Alex, Ryan, Thomas, Cody, Sense, Caroline, Louis, Gypsy, Gavin, Judy, Andreas, Jamie, Linus, Marcelo, and hello there. Obviously, different time as well, so I'm sure some of you don't typically get the streams. Maybe this is more appropriate to your time zone. So, big up. Where are you all in the world? Let me know in the live chat where you are. If you're watching live, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, welcome as well. And I don't expect this live stream to get many views, especially after the fact, because why would you want to reflect on this race? But here we are. I'm still going to cover it anyway, because I love talking about this sport, even when it's a little bit boring sometimes. There's always something interesting and exciting to talk about. And also welcome to everyone who's audio only as well, just through your ears, where we've got Uruguay, Portugal, Adelaide, Baku, go on Ali, Melbourne, Buffalo, New York, Boston, Colombia, Portugal, South Africa, England, Norway, Phoenix, Arizona, Sweden, Cheshire, France, Central Europe, Bristol, Canada, New York. I love how international we are. I love it. I don't know how you understand the way I speak, to be honest, but there you go. You used to me by now. So, Azerbaijan, Baku, sprint weekend. We can reflect on it all. I've already done a live stream. I did a live stream after the sprint shootout yesterday, talking all about my thoughts and feelings around that. So if you haven't listened to that, then if you just want to hear me talk about specifically the qualifying, which I mean, we'll cover it some of it here, because if there was loads to talk about in the race, then I'd just point you to that stream. But there's not loads to talk about from the race, so we'll talk about it here. But first of all, let's start with a race rating. Out of 10, 5 is bang average, remember. 10 is the greatest race ever to have been. 1 is an absolute stinker. What are we saying? What are we saying, chat? Give me some numbers, okay? Give me some numbers, and then I'll use those numbers to come up with a kind of average range. And okay, it's 4s, 3s, a few 2s, okay. Okay, all right. We're going to make a poll now. So race rating out of 10. It won't live long in the memory, that's for sure. So I'm going to put 2 or lower. I'm going to put 3. I'm going to put 4. And if you think this was a bang average race, not good but not bad, then there is a 5 or higher option for you. Maybe if you're a Sergio Perez fan, you might want to rate this a 5 or higher, which is great. This is completely fair. Completely fair. What are we saying? Again, I think it's a combination of, for me anyway, with Baku comes certain expectations. Do I necessarily expect wall-to-wall racing? I expect drama. I expect excitement. I expect something. So many races, you look back at and they've been a bit dead, and then some random has a shunt, and then all of a sudden it flips everything on its head and it becomes a worldie. Okay, that's racing. Okay, some incidents happen. Obviously, inevitably, things do happen. And we did have something happen in this race, which brought out a safety car. But did it turn the race on its head? It didn't turn it on its head. It maybe changed the outcome, maybe, and we'll talk more about that, maybe. But ultimately, did it turn the race on its head? No. Also, am I watching the IndyCar? No. I know the IndyCar is going on at Barber at the minute, isn't it? I would be watching that if I wasn't doing this live stream. But I wanted to get this live stream done tonight because, again, I'm going for a track day tomorrow. So I'll just have to watch the highlights. But up the Grosjean, Kelmanson, I believe he was doing quite well. I think he got to P1, but maybe now he's P2. Right, what are we saying? In the poll, race rating out of 10, 30% of you have gone 2 or lower. 39% of you have gone with 3. 21% have given it a 4. And 10% of you have given it a 5 or more. Well, if this was the average race, the average level of entertainment, quality, will-to-will, then I don't think there'd be quite as many fans of Formula 1 out there, I'll be honest. And obviously a quick reminder as well, audio only. Get it downloaded. But for me, it's a 2. It's a 2, mate. It's a 2. It's a stinker. Now, as much as obviously Checo winning the race over Max was a little bit of a surprise and a welcome surprise if you want a championship fight, I think Checo is our only hope of taking the fight to Max. If this ain't a 2, I don't know what is. I mean, surely it's a 3 at absolute best. But, man, not only did it disappoint by Baku's standard, I overall came away disappointed from Saturday as well. How the sprint shootout particularly led to a race that was, I don't know. There is definitely more change needed to this sprint format to make it work. And the longer this sprint race format goes on and doesn't tick all the boxes, which I think the sprint format has potential. But I'm understanding more and more as time goes on why so many, and I'm sure so many of you watching, are very skeptical and very against the sprint. I get it. I do think it has potential. I don't think it's going anywhere. And I guess my approach is, how can we make the best of them trying to make sure there's competitive running on all 3 days? Because in my opinion, it's going to be the norm. It will eventually be the norm. So, because I like a free practice session. But also, my job is to talk about Formula 1 and make Formula 1 videos on YouTube. Of course I like practice. Come on. Most people watching aren't as into it as I am, as we are. All of us. The fact you're watching me, you obviously are really into Formula 1. Most people watching are watching casually and couldn't give a damn about practice. So, of course, they're going to try and change the format to So it's for me, I'm just there's no point pushing back against it because it gets more eyeballs overall. More people watch in total if you have competitive running Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Fact. So it's going to happen. My question is, how do we make the best of it? How do we make the best of that? Because right now, this isn't it. It's not there yet. Hopefully it will get there. But I don't know. If you just did one shot, it would make it better. No part Fermi, but whatever. The race itself. The thing is, right, as well, if we're going to judge the sprint based on a weekend where the race was also a bit dead, it's you can have yesterday was a bit dead. The sprint race was a bit dead. But was it dead because of the sprint, or was it dead just because in dry conditions around Baku, it's not a particularly exciting race in these cars right now, given where everyone was, given where everyone is relative to each other, was it a bit, because the race today was still a normal race and was a 2 out of 10 race. So again, it's correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation. in that regard, as far as I'm concerned. But I think we do need to see more. But I know for sure that the qualifying sprint quality isn't right. Like, I can already say that with absolute certainty. Sprint quality is not correct to what I believe it should be right now. I think it needs changes. No, I know it needs changes for sure. But as well, you say it, Michael. It's on the other teams now because Red Bull's car's not going to get any slower. Okay, they're still going to be able to bring upgrades. They've still got. It's not like they have no ATR time now. They have no Aero CFD time to develop. They still have Aero CFD time. There's not much of it, but they still have some, so they can still continue to develop that car. It's now the emphasis is on everyone else to utilise their increased levels of ATR CFD to catch up. It's on them. But ultimately, like, the way things stand at the moment is that, Red Bull are making this look very easy, and the only hope, again, we've got for a championship fight at the sharp end, just like 2014, Hamilton Rosberg, Mercedes were clear, but them two were scrapping. They could trip over each other a few times. They could afford to battle because that car had such an advantage that, it ended up being between the two of them and they didn't have to worry about Ricciardo and his Red Bull. So, you can't. But also sometimes there's stinkers in sport. Not everything's a worldie, right? Like, if it was a worldie every single weekend, then it wouldn't be as much of a worldie. Like, the whole reason Kevin Magnussen's pole position in Brazil was such a vibe was because he's in a Haas, which is always at the back. When George Russell qualified P2 in Spa in 2021, whenever it was, that's a vibe because he was in a Williams. Like, so sometimes you do need these stinkers to just level it and be like, okay, this sport can't always be super exciting. But at least we didn't get a Max Verstappen win, the man who looks likely to walk away with this championship. Nothing to do with it being Max. I would say the same if it were... In 2020, the last person I wanted to win was Lewis, because he was in the quickest car and he was the quickest driver. So, of course, I wanted anyone else to win it. It's the same here with Max. But it's interesting. It is interesting. As this calendar moves more towards sprint races, will we see Checo Perez win more and more races relative? Because he seems a bit of an expert in these kind of... every single race he's won, all 5 of them, have been on street circuits. At Red Bull. I was like, Sakir's not a street circuit. But whatever. Checo wins. Won the sprint as well. Did Checo Perez. Very, very impressed. Gotta say. Very impressed. He has won 6, hasn't he? It's 5 at Red Bull that he's won. And 1 in the whatever. Cost cap car is killing F1. I disagree, Andrew. I think that, Red Bull ultimately developed the best car. And you look at the split between the remaining 9, and they are super close from Aston Martin down. Like, that field spread is... That's what we want. We want that. If we could have that field spread, if we could have the same field spread between Aston Martin / Ferrari / Mercedes, whatever, down to the bottom, if we could have that field spread across everyone, including Red Bull, I think we're happy with that. You know what I mean? You've got like 4 teams that can competitively fight on any given weekend in any different condition. It's just that Red Bull have kind of nailed it. And good for them, you know what I mean? Like, it's a shame for the entertainment value of the sport, but they've nailed it. And, is what it is. But yeah, Perez wins ahead of Verstappen. Charles Leclerc holds on by, 8/10 in the end for the podium, which I was pretty surprised about. Ferrari eats through its tyres like mad. He was about 16 seconds, I think, off the back of Max Verstappen by the end of the race. Something like that. So certainly the Red Bulls had an advantage, and the Red Bulls were both pushing as well. So it wasn't one of these where you'd be like, oh well, 16-second gap, which isn't 16 seconds is. I mean, we've had bigger gaps. We've had bigger gaps between like the top team and the next team. We've had bigger gaps, and I think that Leclerc was pushing hard to keep Alonso behind. So at Baku, the Red Bulls weren't. They were a lot quicker than the Ferrari. They weren't a stupid amount quicker. They was just a lot quicker. So they're still quicker, but not. You know what I mean? But Fernando Alonso almost caught him at the end. And Lewis Hamilton was giving Carlos Sainz something to think about towards the end as well. Carlos in his Ferrari, Lewis in his Mercedes. Lance Stroll P7 as well. Kind of bottled it a bit. Went wide, turn 16, let Hamilton past. Maybe could have held him. I don't know if Stroll would have held Hamilton behind, to be honest. I'm not so convinced of that. Russell sneaking fastest lap again, yet again making himself very unpopular with Max Verstappen. And Lando Norris P9, Yuki Tsunoda once again, another P10 for Mr. Yuki Tsunoda. 2 P11s, 2 P10s in 4 races. Only 2 points on the board. It's a shame. Tsunoda, because the fairest way to really give everyone points is just to do average finishing position. That would actually be the fairest way to rank the championship, you know what I mean? Because Yuki's average finishing position versus the amount of points he's got is very misleading. Very misleading. But there you go. Hello, regular guy running. You got my attention by using my surname. Well done. And you spelled it right as well. Big up. But yeah, Piastri just missing out. Bless him as well. Oscar was not feeling well this weekend. Not at all. He was having a bit of a sick moment, but not good sick. You know what I mean? Ill sick. And then Albon with one, strategic. Shed a bit of weight, a bit less drag by knocking off his front wing end plate and coming home P12. Could whatever it could have been, it was. I don't even know what I'm saying. What's that even mean? Alpine stinker as well. Absolute stinker from the Alpines. Stinky stinker. Filth. Disgusting. Okay, cool. And the driver standings are therefore as follows. Max Verstappen leads the championship by 6 points over Sergio Perez. Fernando Alonso still only 27 points off the back of Sergio Perez. That is a DNF and race win plus the fastest lap for Fernando Alonso away. So he's not at this early stage. It's important, from a championship fight point of view, that the next closest driver, who is Fernando Alonso, doesn't lose complete. The difference between P2 and P3 is 3 points. The difference between P1 and P3 is 10 points. So, Fernando's got a hope for a couple of Red Bull DNFs at this early point of the season. I do have faith that, Aston, Mercedes, Ferrari will somewhat close the gap to Red Bull by the end of the season. Do I think they'll completely close the gap? No. But I think they will somewhat close the gap. So I guess everyone's, again, from a championship point of view, you're hoping that Red Bull have their technical gremlins earlier on in the season. And I mean, I'll tell you what, bloody hell. Max and Checo were both grazing that wall at turn, 15, whatever it is, multiple times. They were not leaving anything on the table. As we saw from Nick de Vries' accident that put him out of the race, it could have gone very differently. Very differently. We'll get onto the Ocon pit stop drama, don't worry. There's not too much race stuff to talk about, is there? So there'll be plenty of time for that. Leclerc's the biggest mover, so he's moved up significantly. Of course, finally getting a Ferrari podium, first Ferrari podium of the season. Goes level on points with George Russell as well. So, yeah, I mean, Russell was 20 points behind Hamilton already, which I don't think is reflected performance, but I just think George has got a bit unlucky. And Lewis has probably done slightly better than George in the races as well. No big movers otherwise. Sonoda got a point on the board, so he moves up to P16 ahead of Albon and Magnussen. Right, and so constructors are 93 points between. Yeah, I mean, constructors, like Red Bull won that. I don't really care. Do you really care? I don't really care. I mean, that was always going to be, because this is the championship where, it pays to have two drivers at the front really close to each other. Because again, look, if you look at the driver standings, again, if Max had won every single race, or if Checo had won every single race, then Alonso wouldn't be within 33 points of the lead. He'd be a lot further back than that. So, again, them taking points off of each other, it gives a degree of a chance, a little bead of light of hope, you know? Because as much as I'd love... Actually, that's a good little poll question. What would you rather? Would you rather a Max versus Checo title fight, or a Max/Checo versus one other title fight? Here we go. So would you rather it be a Red Bull, they take off, fine, but then it's Verstappen versus Perez and they actually have a genuine fight? Or would you rather it be, you know, Alonso fighting with, say, just Verstappen, or Hamilton fighting with just Perez or whatever at the front? Also, I added a J in Checo's name for some reason. Who's shit? It's the pronunciation, right? Come on. That was a little slip of the old finger. That was whoopsie daisy. So most of you, 68% of you, are saying you'd rather it be a fight, basically one of them fighting with someone from another team. Which, yeah, I guess the implication from the second option is that one of those other teams does catch up to Red Bull somewhat, I guess, which is, whereas if it's a Max versus Checo fight, that Red Bull could continue to increase its gap. You know, you like to think with these regulations, if they stay stable, then there is kind of a performance ceiling, right? That everyone gets to eventually. Well, not necessarily everyone gets to, but is reached at some point, and then there's not much more performance to gain. But yeah, a good teammate duel. It's been a while since we've had a really good teammate duel at the front. It's been since Hamilton-Rosberg, isn't it? In terms of wheel to wheel. Do I think that's going to happen this year? I'd love to say yes. I don't. If every race was at Baku and Jeddah, if it just alternated between those two races, then maybe. But unfortunately, over the course of an entire season, we saw this many a time with Valtteri Bottas after the first kind of few races, looking like he's in a really strong position to fight with Lewis, but to do it over the course of an entire championship, when you're up against a driver of the absolute quality of Lewis Hamilton and the absolute quality of Max Verstappen, it's a tall order. But Checo's got nothing to lose, has he? You know, this is the opportunity. This is the best opportunity he's ever going to get. You know, in this seat alongside Max Verstappen, when there's no other teams. There's no other teams that can hang with Red Bull right now. So this is Checo's best opportunity, because I like to think that next year there will be other teams who will have closed the gap. Sorry, I just saw your comment, Formula Bone. Cheddar. He should release his own cheese. Cheddar cheese from Checo. Checo cheddar cheese. There you go. Boom. Lovely. Marketing. That's what that is. Marketing, baby. Oh, dear. Brilliant. Never mind, eh? We move. Right, okay, cool. So, they're the driver standings. Those are the constructor standings. Constructors, no movement at all in terms of positions. Just more points on the board for Aston Martin and Mercedes. Scuderia Ferrari jumping up big in terms of points, but still behind Mercedes. So there you go. Jamie, thank you for the $2.99. Appreciate it, mate. Just got to say, W for Alonso advising Stroll. That was mad. That was actually mad. Is this live or pre-recorded? Monkey Smoke, this is pre-recorded. Right, predictions time. Predictions time. So, the reason this was a little bit delayed is because I was updating predictions. For the 2022 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, worldies and stinkers. Starting with... Actually, no, we'll start with the previous predictions. So this is what... Should we do that? No, let's start with mine. So my prediction... Not my predictions. Stop being stupid. My worldies and stinkers from the 2023 Azerbaijan Grand Prix are as follows. No big surprises here. Worldie drive, Checo Perez. Stinker drive, Nick De Vries. Worldie team, Red Bull. And stinker team, Alfa Romeo. I am cooked. That is true. That is very true. Worldie drive, look, could have given that to, I think, Fernando. Really strong drive, considering the issues with DRS to almost get on the podium. Very impressive. Charles Leclerc, don't think he could have done much more with that Ferrari that's underneath him. Piastri to almost get in the points when he was ill as he's been, I guess, that's kind of impressive. Stuck in a bit of a DRS train for a lot of the race. They're the drivers that really kind of... they stand out to me. Is my camera face tracking? No, the focus kind of stays on my face. So, stinker definitely De Vries. I mean, the Alpines had a bit of a poor day, but I mean, Ocon couldn't have done much more starting in the pit lane. Bottas didn't have a great race, but he did get damaged, so you don't know how much that accounted for his issues. Stroll didn't have a great race. He was very lucky to not take himself out, but then he did also pull a really good overtake on Russell, I think it was, wasn't it? I mean, De Vries is the one that stands out because he literally crashed into the wall on his own and put himself out of the race. So, and then Worldie Team Red Bull. I mean, yeah, sometimes you just have to give it to Red Bull because they were just just because they didn't get a pole position, like points aren't won on Fridays or Saturdays now. Obviously. Well, they are won on Saturdays in the sprint. You can't say that anymore. You can't just say points are won on Sundays. No, you have to be very specific. Yeah, I mean, just great job. What can I say? Top tier from Red Bull, top tier from their drivers as well. And then stinker team, Alfa Romeo, Alpine again, because of the numerous Gasly issues, some which were his fault, some which weren't, over the course of the weekend. And Ocon, I mean, they rolled the dice with Esteban, didn't they? You start from the pit lane, as was Nico Hulkenberg. You expect a safety car, which we did get, but we didn't get a late enough one to help them two out. So, yeah. They're mine. Yours are exactly the same. I do mine before yours, so I'm not influenced, and we agree on this one. So 65% of you have gone Checo for Worldie Drive. Of the 589 of you who voted, sorry, I didn't give too much time to vote, but I want to do this, go to bed, and I've got to be up at like 5:30 to do my track day. So you've got Checo, Leclerc, 11%, Alonso, 8%, and Tsunoda, 7%. To be fair, yeah, P10, qualified P8 as well. Was unlucky with the safety car timing as well, was Man Like Yuki. Welcome, Halita. You didn't get a notification, fuming. YouTube, what are you doing? Make sure, if you're subscribed, make sure you click the notification bell. So like Halita, you'll, well, hopefully get a notification. But maybe you won't. Maybe it's a waste of time. You do what you want. I can't make you do anything, all right? Stinker, 68% of you gave it to Nick De Vries, 15% Valtteri. Again, Valtteri had damage, so hard to be too harsh on him. Gasly had issues all weekend, didn't he? Science was a bit of a... I'm concerned for Carlos. I am concerned somewhat for Carlos Sainz. I am. It's not been good for him recently, is it? He just doesn't seem to be on... Where Charles is just putting out these unreal laps in qualifying, Carlos just doesn't seem to be able to hang with him at all at the minute. So, we'll see. Worldie team, 72% Red Bull, 15% Ferrari, 7% Aston Martin. Much better job than I thought they'd do, especially in the hands of Fernando. And 5% McLaren. Good qualifying. Lando thought he could have got 4th in qualifying, which, I mean, maybe that's optimistic, but maybe he could have. In the race, yeah, it was just a bit of that Ocon train. With Ocon and Hulkenberg staying out, it really hindered Lando's race massively. And Stinker team, you've given it to Alpha 46%, 37% Alpine, 7% AlphaTauri. I mean, yeah, they sent Yuki out like a crab, didn't they? So yeah, actually, that's great. That's fair. That is pretty stinky. Did AlphaTauri get a punishment for that? Did they get a fine or something for sending Yuki back out on the sprint like a crab? I don't actually know. I didn't hear about it. So €5,000, is that it? It's mad. And then Haas as well. Yeah, not a great weekend for Haas because, yeah, I mean, well, look, the predictions that we both had. I'm going to start. We'll start by roasting yours first. These were your predictions for this weekend. So race winner incorrect. 23% of you went Sergio Perez, and the 23% were correct. Worldie Drive, Joe, no. I mean, he didn't even finish the Grand Prix. He was the Alfa Romeo just broke down on him because it was too hot. He was running like P13, I think. Stinker Drive, well done. Well done. You got Nick De Vries. I mean, you got Nick De Vries every week, and usually you're right. Unfortunately for him, he needs to sort it out for sure. Worldie team, easy. Red Bull, fine. Stinker team, Ferrari. No, Ferrari actually did all right. Ferrari actually did okay. Yeah, I don't know how 5% predicted Joe to win. I don't know. I don't know either. And then my predictions somehow were even worse than yours. So I got Max wrong. Worldie Drive Hulkenberg. I mean, he did what he had to do to try and, you know, luck into a late safety car to get on in the points. But yeah, it wasn't great. Stinker Drive Stroll. I mean, it wasn't the worst call because Stroll, you know, you look at where Fernando finished relative to Stroll. Yes, Stroll put in a good overtake on Russell, but also he was so lucky. Like, he hit that wall harder than De Vries, I think. I think he hit that wall harder than De Vries, but he just glanced it more. I think it was more of a glancing blow, but it was a heavier blow, but he got away with it. So, only because Fernando sabotaged Stroll with a brake. I love that. Maybe he did. Worldie team Haas, moving on. Stinker team Aston Martin, yeah, they did a lot better than I thought they would. I thought they'd have a bit of a shocker, to be honest. But, I mean, Fernando said, you know, this is, you know, been probably their worst track, and they still managed to finish less than a second off the podium. So, I didn't believe in Alpine. You're right, Pankun, and I was wrong. So, there you go. Aston's built like a tank. It is green. So, you know, that's an extra that maybe it's Kevlar in the paint, you know. It's Kevlar reinforced carbon fiber. So yeah. L's from most of them, but this is what you lot came up with. Right, Fantasy League as well. I don't know how I've managed to talk without really going into the teams for like 40 minutes, but there we go. You're welcome. Right, Fantasy League. Wait, that's not updated. Why is that not updated? Wait, what? Hang on. There's always something wrong. Right, ignore that. This is where I am in the world now after 4 races. I am 325,857th in the world. Don't at me, all right? Don't at me, just because I'm that sick, all right? I'm that good. Right, let's replace that. So then we've got the nice upgraded team graphic, lovely jubbly. Right, so that's where I am in the world. This week I brought Hulkenberg in, which was not good. I also bought in Lando Norris, which after qualifying I was feeling pretty happy about. And then the race and the sprint also happened. But at least I had Checo in there to get big points. At least I had Max in there, and the Aston Martin and the Red Bull. So, yes. What happened to my Frank Green? I don't actually know where it is. I think it's in the bedroom. It's a bottle, by the way. You've got 1,187 points, have you, Ali? Well, I've got 1,141. So, and I haven't used any turbos or anything either. So I'm holding on to those because I don't want to go full send too early. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting in Fantasy League. So at least I remember to change it. Again, Alex and Lando had way more pace than I think they could show in the race because they were stuck in the Ocon train. So could have been better, but Tommo cheats on this. How would I cheat, Liam? Unless I photoshopped these results. I just add a 3 to my, or 30 to my 2 points. But anyway, Fantasy League's 9. Right, all teams. Yeah, let's start with Red Bull actually. Let's do it in top down order. Red Bull Racing, pretty impeccable. They didn't qualify P1. Cool, fine. They won both races, so I don't think they're that arsed. Having a quick car in one, it just shows, doesn't it? Having a quick car for around one lap versus a quick car in the race. I mean, the Red Bull wasn't even close to the Red Bull. Charles got overtaken so easily, particularly by Max. Checo had to work a bit harder for it, but still, on another level. Incredible. And you got to say, I was kind of surprised. Do we think Red Bull made a mistake bringing in Max when they did? Because obviously, watching the broadcast, you see De Vries parked up. You see it on the TV screens, and obviously Red Bull have got the trace. They can see that De Vries has stopped, and you can see on the replay, you can see his left wheel pointing in the wrong direction. It felt like watching the broadcast. It felt like there might have been just about enough time, because obviously there's delay in the live car on track. There's a degree of delay between seeing the video feed, knowing exactly has De Vries just, I don't know, locked up a bit and, has to carry on. I think that it's easy, on the face of it, it looks like Red Bull kind of made a bit of a mistake and they could and maybe should have foreseen the safety car, looking at the damage to De Vries from the image that we saw on the TV screens that they also see. But they brought in Max anyway. I guess, it's a double stack if they don't bring Max in, which is potentially it's gonna be fine for Max, but it's gonna hurt Checo, a bit potentially. So Kravitz said Red Bull may have thought the car could move, so not needing a safety car. Well, that's the thing. Because De Vries' car was perpendicular to the wall, wasn't it? So it wasn't like he could just reverse back into a place where they could just pull the car away. They had to get machinery out to pick it up, and again, the front left suspension, wishbone, whatever, was snapped. So, but the thing is as well, is that when Max came in, Checo was catching Max. Checo was reeling him in. He was within a second at the time. If Max hadn't pulled into the pit, then Checo's potentially on for a turn 1 overtake. So it also, bringing Max in, it also diffused any potential situation there as well. So it, which I was excited. I was like, what's going to happen now? Is Perez going to go for it? Are Red Bull going to tell Checo to hold position? Blah blah blah. We didn't get to see it because Max came in the pits, and again, maybe Red Bull were just you know what, let's just bring him in. It might be a safety car, it might not be, but let's bring him in. The worst that happens is we lose. You've got your teammate behind you. They lost position to Leclerc as well in the end with Max, but also on the restart, you look at how easily Max got past Charles as soon as DRS opened up. Like, I don't think Red Bull would have been massively concerned about being behind, because Leclerc's not going to fight that easy. What's the point? So, yeah, I think we did miss a little bit of a potential fight there, because Checo was closing in on Max. Like, for sure, he was. So they brought Max in. Why didn't they pit Checo? Yeah, and again, I think I guess they could have. The thing is, the driver ahead, you ask Max to pit, is the driver ahead, so he just comes in. If you're asking Checo to pit, but then Max stays out, well, no one's forcing. You can't force Checo to drive into the pit lane. If he thinks, well, no, I don't want to be brought in, like, he could just ignore that team order. Whereas it's less likely to happen if you're the car in front, because, well, you can't react. You know what I mean? The driver ahead gets pit preference as well. Yeah, look. As much as it's been easy to kind of somewhat criticize Red Bull for it's all Max's team, blah blah blah. Like, I think they treated both drivers very equally in this race, and it ended up playing out in Checo's favour for sure. I think Checo had slightly more pace than he seemed more comfortable. Like, they were pretty much almost at like 51-49 that advantage. Perez, I think, just in terms of pace, and the fact that when Checo was ahead, Max fell back. If anything, it wasn't. He was saying in the post race, Max, that it was only the last 10 laps that he felt kind of comfortable in the car, because he was messing around with the settings on his steering wheel to try and get a balance that he liked. And yeah, look, he couldn't reel Checo in, and Checo deserves full credit for just being quicker than Max. Like, in the race, he was able to get ahead through a degree of fortuity, but he then stayed ahead, and if not, opened that gap up. So, I was happy with how it was. There was hands-off management. Again, the safety car kind of helped them, because Checo's of course he's gonna fight Max. Of course, they know that they're against each other, and they've got a car advantage, so they don't have to worry too much about what everyone else is doing. Question, as you say, Patrick, does Checo have a chance in the championship? Now, look, we've had 4 races. 3 of those races have been street circuits. Australia, technically, is a street circuit. Although Checo had big issues in Australia, of course. He had issues in qualifying. His car was pulling forward when he was trying to slow down, whatever. And Checo said in the post-race, if he didn't have the issues in Australia, he feels like he'd be leading the championship, which maybe he would. Does Checo have a legitimate chance? We go to Miami next, which is another street track. Monaco isn't that far away, another street track. I don't know. I really want to say yes. Of course, I do. Of course I want to say yes. But just Max is that good. And we've seen it so many times in the past when, you can start a season strong. You can also end a season strong. You can also take a little bit more time. That certain driver, like Carlos Sainz is a good example of a driver, I think, who typically takes a little bit more time to settle in to a car over the course of a season. Second half of the season, he typically is a bit stronger than his first half, Welcome, Motornaut. Thank you for coming. So yeah, I don't know. I hope so. That's all I can say. Do I actually believe it? Would I actually put money on Checo winning the title? No, I wouldn't. But I hope so. I hope so, because it would be phenomenal to see. But most of that hope would be out of desire for wanting a championship fight of some kind. Even if it's teammates fighting. Sweet, I'm happy with that. That's fine. But do I actually believe it's going to happen? Probably not. But while Red Bull have got a car advantage, it's not the end of the world. As long as they're not crashing into each other, Red Bull, I think, will be happy. Picking up 1-2s. Whatever order the drivers are in, let them duke it out themselves. Maybe eventually it will come to blows. I mean, from a drama point of view, that would be exciting. No question. Ricardo Verstappen all over again, right? Aston Martin. Yeah, I mean, I think damage limitation, again, from what Fernando was saying, he didn't feel they'd be strong going into this weekend. I didn't think they'd be strong going into this weekend. Got a very weak DRS. That Mercedes power unit doesn't seem great down the straights, but, second quickest car, I think, race pace-wise this weekend. The only reason he didn't get past Charles was just because Charles did a phenomenal job. And Fernando was starting down in what did Fernando qualify? I can't remember. You'll let me know in the chat. DRS fouls as well, exactly. So to still get up there, really good. So that's a really good race car. That Aston Martin, really good race car. Sixth, there you go. P6 in qualifying to almost P3, but P4 in the race in the end. So yeah, Fernando just doing what he does. Like, you got a driver as quality as Fernando Alonso, you can rely on him to get the best out of it. And Lance was, he had some good moments, but he was a very lucky boy to get away with that contact. It's a track that bites. You need to be alert on a street circuit. That's what Jodian says, But yeah, all in all, they can be happy. Aston Martin, they can be very happy with this weekend, for sure. We have not talked about the pit lane drama yet. I just want to go through all the teams first. Not much more to say. Already kind of covered that. Big up, well done, Fernando Alonso. Almost 4 P3s in 4 races, but it was 3 P3s and 1 P4 in 4 races. That makes sense. Mercedes, yeah, I mean, it's all right. Like, Lewis got heavily done over by that safety car, didn't he? Because he'd just pitted. So I think he lost like 5 positions. I think Lewis, was probably at best on for, I don't know. I think maybe he could have finished ahead of Sainz, but I don't think he would have finished ahead of Fernando. It's just customer team quicker than them once again. I think, Fernando comfortably had the measure, pace-wise, of the Mercedes boys. Yeah. Still not good enough. What more is there to say? There is not. But it's going to take time for old James Allison coming back to turn that ship around. So, we'll see. Ferrari, again, better than expected. Leclerc did very good. Oh, mate, Charles Leclerc, man, is so good. He's so good. He's so good, man. Like, it's easy to forget sometimes, just with all the Ferrari clownery, just how good Charles Leclerc is. And, like, it's just such a shame that he hasn't been able to... He's not been given the package to fight over the course of an entire season, because we know from the start of last year that he can do it. He's got it in his locker. He's got a bottle in his locker as well. But that bottle's getting more and more empty over time, surely. He's going to put a lid on it, Put a lid on the bottle, Charles. Because on his day, he's just, over a lap, he's untouchable, man. Like, literally. Over a lap, he's ridiculous. Like, the job he's doing in that Ferrari, top tier. And P3, you can't realistically expect him to have done anything more, especially with the Aston Martin race pace, I think, being better than the Ferrari. So, but yeah, Carlos Sainz is a concerning one. Although, to be honest, like, if Ferrari do give Charles Leclerc a title-winning car, you also want a number 1 and 2 driver. And right now, Sainz is stinking of number 2 driver. Or, like, fully, isn't he? So, is that a terrible thing? That Carlos is a bit off of Charles? Not necessarily. But yeah, he was more than a pit stop behind Leclerc. Exactly, Jack. It's not good enough. But then if you want a number 1 and 2 driver, then it's kind of what you got right now. The challenge for Mercedes, if they get a title competing car, is what do they do with their drivers? You got Lewis and Georgia, 2 of the closest drivers in Formula 1 at the minute. that's a difficult. You've got to prioritise one if you've got multi-team fighting at the top. If you want to win a driver's title, you've got to, you have to prioritise one because you're going to take points off of each other. Ferrari, you don't need to think about it. It's Charles Leclerc. It just is. So that's the one kind of silver lining, maybe, from Carlos's struggles. But I do, I've got a lot of love for Carlos Sainz, so I hope he turns it around. But it's not looking good, Brev. Not looking good. Alpine. I guess we should talk about, not much to talk about with Alpine, apart from that absolutely appalling pit lane incident. Oh my, there's a picture, right? I retweeted it earlier. Let me find it. There it is. Save that to my downloads and then drag it on screen. What the is going on? What? Just look at this. Look at this. You're audio only. Sorry, if you're audio only, the image is of Ocon bearing down on all of these people at that time, doing probably about what time do we reckon his what speed do we reckon he's doing at this point, chat? Just so we can help out the audio only listeners. So Ocon's coming to the pits. He's done the little left, right, left, and he's just straightened it out to come up to the line. Yeah, probably 100 mile an hour, 150 kph, 100. Yeah, I'd say about 100, maybe 90, 100 mile an hour, okay? So, you're driving down the motorway in the UK speed limit, 70 mile an hour, which I only ever drive at 70 mile an hour, of course, obviously, only. I'd never do more than that, because I'm a very good boy. And it's 70 mile an hour. 20 more than that, okay? So, you see some muppet in a Mercedes in the fast lane, probably doing 90. That's how quick he's going in an F1 car with essentially a sword on the front. That front wing, it's like a sword. You got two front wings there. Take off some ankles if you're not careful. That image. Again, sorry, audio only listeners, but I mean, if you didn't see what happened, Ocon drove into the pits. These FIA lot and all these little photographers dawdling around and security and all that. Oh yeah, we're just gonna tape off the pit lane entrance. Yeah, we'll just do that. And go. Oh my God, it's just about Ocon. And it's you got Ted Kravitz losing his mind on the thing. It was the way he was shouting, which he was rightly so. It was something out of a horror film. It was there's Ocon's coming into pit, but there's people in the pit lane. It was what? The image looks like it was taken in. Image looks like something out of WRC. All these Group B WRC, when you had all these lunatics just standing in the middle of the road and these cars going 120 miles an hour on gravel right past them. Oh my God, how is this allowed to happen? Yeah, I'm not surprised Ted was so stressed, because he thought he was probably about to witness this massive, multiple fatality. Seriously. Even what's the pit lane speed limit? Is it 60 k's, which is about 40 mile an hour? It sound like Dobby. Maybe that's my is it 80 kilometers an hour? So 80, that's 60 mile an hour, isn't it? So even again, the line is when you need to get down to 80 k's or 60 mile an hour. Oh, 50 mile an hour. Sorry, 50 mile an hour. So yeah, he's doing 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour at this point, hurtling towards these people. It's easy to lose track of, they're still going quick down when you got the pit limit on, relative to a human being. If you get run over, you're you're almost certainly brown bread. Like you're not waking up from that one. And apparently was it the FIA have summoned themselves because it was like FIA security who allowed people to go out. Same thing happened with Albon in Australia. It did. You're right, Sword. You're right. I don't think it's blown up because I think it's equally like obviously this is more clear and obvious that oh my god, what the hell's happening? But like the same happened with Alex in Australia. There were people. No one was actually standing on the track surface. Like no one was standing within the white lines like they are here. But people were still like really close, like waiting to run on when Albon pitted right at the end. Mate, this like that could have gone very differently, and then the whole tone of this is incredibly different. You know? Imagine this in the early 90s before pit lane speed limit. Esteban said afterwards, if he locks a brake, if he misjudges somewhat, if it just takes one person to get a bit confused and like run the other way. Yeah, man. I don't know. Oh, you think taking out multiple people into the season? I daren't imagine, Martin, to be honest. I have no idea. But yeah, that was sketchy. That was very sketchy. And that was about the only thing to talk about from Alpine's weekend, really. It was just an absolute shocker. Gasly had a shocker, crashed, but also he had loads of issues with his car. Ocon changed bits on his car, part Fermi, blah, blah, blah. Finn, done. Alfa Romeo, absolutely awful Romeo. Awful Romeo, let's call them that now. Awful Romeo. That works. Awful Romeo, the only car not to reach Q3 so far this season, by the way. There's only one car now that Yuki made it, got P8 in qualifying. Awful Romeo. There we go. No more. I can't be asked. I mean, Bottas had damage. Joe was doing all right in the train, but then broke down. So yeah, Awful Romeo. Moving on. I'm coining that, by the way. If anyone uses that on Twitter and gets numbers, then remember, I'm the one who came up with that, okay? You steal it, Will.i.am. Steal it, but credit where credit's due, please. Haas, pretty bad. Kevin had decent pace, and Hulkenberg rolled the dice, but it didn't pay off, did it? So I thought they were going to have a really good weekend. They didn't. Williams, Sargent, not a great weekend. Yeah, I mean, it was all right. Nothing special. What, P16 in the end, wasn't it? And Alex, no front wing end plate. Alex was, again, I criticise whoever. Like, I don't care if I like you or not. Like, Alex was a bit silly sticking his nose up the inside. I think he just broke too late. I don't think that was so much intentional. I think he just broke a bit too late. But sticking his nose on the inside of Piastri, that gap's always closing. He's always going to get contact there. And yeah, that could have ended Oscar's race as well. Because I think that was the knock-on effect of that caused the Bottas contact as well between Piastri and Bottas, I think. And yeah, so that was a bit foolish from Alex for me. That was on him for sure. And but all in all, the pace, considering again no front wing end plate, he was just stuck in that train, so couldn't really show anything. Just that train, man, just killed so much of this race. Like, I think that's why this is a 2 out of 10, because we didn't even have a good scrap in the midfield, because it was just everyone was stuck behind Ocon. Because he was running P8, and yeah, you just had everyone stuck behind him. So it was just so painfully mid. AlphaTauri, look, if De Vries doesn't shunt in qualifying, like again, Yuki got to Q3. AlphaTauri bought quite a few upgrades this week, and it actually did well. I want to double check. Did Nick De Vries? I'm sure he said it himself, didn't he? Didn't Nick De Vries say himself? Yeah. Nick De Vries dismisses rookie status. Wait, yes. AlphaTauri, not a rookie. AlphaTauri technical director Jody Eggington has declared Nick De Vries as not a rookie. What else has he said? Nick De Vries believes he's ready for the switch to F1. Where's it say? Where's the word rookie? Image search. That's rookie status. Where's it say? What's the quote? Okay, he said, in terms of Formula 1 mileage, if you actually would count it, I don't think I'm better prepared than other rookies. Really? He's driven like every single F1 car. But I think that's irrelevant to me whether I'm titled as a rookie or not. I'm very fortunate and probably a little bit older to have the opportunity. Yeah, and Jody Eggington is like, it's not a rookie. I mean, he's driving like a rookie. What can I say? He's not been very good. And I think Yuki's stepping up in performance has magnified Nick's issues, but I think he has been comfortably, like, he's not had a good weekend at all. Like, Sargent's, had some stinky moments, but he's had some really good moments. I mean, Bahrain opening lap, phenomenal. Jeddah qualifying, again, if he doesn't drive over that line, he's out qualifying Alex. How much of it is Yuki dragging a tractor to P10, or how much of it is just that car's just all right in the midfield and Nick De Vries is underperforming? It's hard to know which side it is, right? I see Helmut calling Liam during the summer break. Yeah, look, Nick De Vries needs to step it up. Like, he's not a Red Bull Junior. He's not come through the ranks. They've not got that allegiance to him like they will Liam Lawson, who's doing very well in Super Formula, did very well in DTM, did very well in Formula 2. I think Liam's ticks a lot of those boxes. You've got Awassa doing well, not great this weekend, but all in all doing well in Formula 2. Hauger doing very well in Formula 2. Fittipaldi was on the podium this weekend. Maloney's doing bits as well. Has De Vries done better than Latifi? Oh, yeah, he's done a lot better than Latifi. Come on. I mean, his pace hasn't been a mile off. De Vries' pace hasn't been a mile off. He's just made a few mistakes, and he's been slow in qualifying. So, yeah, bit of an L. Lewis, mate, cheers for the $4.99. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts on Red Bull team celebrating on the pit wall, even though teams have been told not to do it? I don't believe that's true, Lewis. Basically, you still can go to the pit wall and celebrate, but you need to have like 1 foot on brick or something. Like, you can't, I think it's that you can't climb up the fence or something. Basically, you can still do it, but you can't be as like proper hanging over the car. Yeah, as it's like going underneath you. Like they're just they've wound it back a bit, but you can still go up to the thing and celebrate. So yeah, I think that's the change. They've not completely gotten rid of it. Yeah, exactly. They used the proper windows, didn't climb the fence, all that stuff. But yeah, Nick needs to turn it on. He needs to turn it on sharpish, because you know that Red Bull have no issue whatsoever changing a driver mid-season. They have absolutely no problem, no fear about doing that. So yeah, AlphaTauri, Nick De Vries, pull your finger out. McLaren, obviously there was a lot lauded of these upgrades that have come, the changes to the floor, mostly to the floor. 2 changes to rear wing as well, I think it was. 1 of 3 significant upgrades that's come in. And I think Lando thought he should have been P4 in qualifying. Wasn't really able to show his pace in the sprint because he was on a soft tyre and it was a terrible tyre. And wasn't really able to show his pace in the race because he was stuck in the train behind Ocon and Hulkenberg. It's one thing being stuck behind one car, but when you've got both cars going long on their hard tyre, then, well, Hulkenberg's always got DRS. So it just makes it even more difficult when it's the trademark DRS train. So, yeah, it weren't really able to show it. Piastri, obviously Piastri's not been well, and yeah, he did okay, but I think all things considered, it maybe wasn't the track for McLaren to really get the most out of these upgrades. Baku's such a unique circuit, isn't it? Like, compared to the rest of it's got such this stupidly long straight, and then just really slow, like 90-degree corners, pretty much is the track. So, maybe these upgrades will come into their own at a track like Catalunya or maybe even Miami, because that's a little bit more flowing at times anyway. But yeah, not Yeah, drag's still not great, exactly. So they're going to struggle. Jose, you don't love me. You don't love me. I'm just a man on the internet. Lando hates Baku, does he? Didn't know that. But yeah, not great for McLaren. Not terrible. At least they got a couple of points to walk away, take home with them. Right, okay. Main screen. Going to see intro once again. Wow, we've actually gone for an hour, 12 minutes. What have I missed? Sprint. Yeah, I guess I should talk a bit about the sprint, shouldn't I? So, obviously I've been thinking of what we got. You know, I came away from Saturday disappointed, for sure. I definitely, again, I don't think this format is the right format. I think they need to change it up. And for me, you know, again, we're not going to get away from Friday competitive running. That's going to be a thing. And I'm not fundamentally against that. Original sprint format was better. The one thing the original sprint format had was at least everyone would go full send push at the sprint race, because that's where you start for the race, so you're incentivized to push. But then I didn't feel like there was anyone who fully threw in the towel in the sprint, really. And yeah, maybe it was just because Baku isn't well supported for the sprint. Look, I think a happy medium. My biggest issue is that there's two things. So, issue number one, sprint qualifying doesn't feel unique, distinct, different enough. Sprint, like, it feels the same. It doesn't feel any different. It feels a little bit different, but it doesn't feel different enough. The medium tyre, one compound, push lap, cool down, push lap. That was nice. I quite like that. It feels a bit F2-esque. That was cool. It's fine. Just do that. Do that session for 15 minutes. Make it a bit longer. Then top 10 go through. Bottom 10 knocked out. They start the sprint in their position. And then the top 10 at the end, get them to do one shot. Make it different. Make it feel unique. Like the broadcast. It just felt the same. That Q3 just felt exactly the same. SQ3 felt exactly the same as normal Q3. It felt the same. So, for me, I think sprinkling a one shot in that makes it a little bit different. Also, I think, you know, having the cars under park firmly from Friday onwards, it just, like, there's no scope for the cars to and the teams to adjust their setup from the sprint to the race to make it at least a bit different. Like, obviously, if Hulkenberg and Ocon, you know, broke part Fermi to change their car, and then that started from the pit lane. Just let everyone just have, like, you learn what you can from the sprint, and then you see if you can adjust at least that. Rather than if you've got a carbon copy setup on the Saturday sprint as you have on the Friday and Sunday race, then you can't be surprised to get like the same results. At least give the teams a chance to, all right, let's change the setup a bit. Maybe you'll improve. Maybe you'll not make a difference. Maybe you'll make it worse. You know? Like, I just think there's no... I think if you did those two things, I think that's a step in the right direction. And also, maybe the sprint... The sprint's either a bit too long, or it needs a mandatory pit stop in the middle. I'm inclined to say mandatory pit stop. Because the thing is, right, with a mandatory pit stop in a sprint race, because that race is so much shorter, you're given less chance for these gaps to really open up. So your pit, the timing of your pit is going to be way more tricky to nail, because you don't want to pit into traffic. You know what I mean? So I think use my version of the sprint quali, mandate a pit stop in the sprint race, and allow changes outside of part Fermi between the sprint race and the Sunday race. Those three things. F1. I know you're watching, Stefano. Do it. Do it. Do it. I think that would sort it. I don't think reverse grids. I think that's fine for F2. I don't want to see reverse grids in F1. That's too much for me. Yeah, F2 and Ollie Behrman were more entertaining than the whole F1 weekend, exactly. If you're looking for entertaining racing, just watch F2 every weekend, because F2's quality, as is F3 as well. But F2, unreal, especially in the sprint race. That was chaos. But even the feature race, they kept it clean, but it was very entertaining. It was good racing, good quality racing, for sure. You can't just have one practice. If someone gets an engine issue 20 minutes in, like Gasly, weekend in the mud due to that. Yeah, but I mean, whose fault is it? He's got an engine issue. Make an engine that doesn't have an issue. You know what I mean? Like that's what happens. I mean, I wouldn't be against like making if you're gonna have one practice session, maybe make it like an hour and a half. Make it a bit longer. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, maybe make FP1 a little bit longer. Make it like a half hour longer. Friday qualifying keepers is. Change the sprint qualifying to what I said. Mandate a pit stop in the sprint race. Allow car changes outside of parc fermé between the sprint and the race. Right, sorted, done, finished. I have fixed the sprint. Confirmed. Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate you all taking the time. Appreciate everyone who doesn't typically catch the streams as well. Who's here. So thank you. Freaky, Gustavo, Cal, Sam, SC, Matt, Melissa, Ward, Liam, Sud, Sean, Salim, Moon One, Farida, Anarid, Ryan, Ali, Will, Jamie, Salmon, Cakes, Polita, Oscar, Simbrew, Clarky Boy, Francis, David, Dr. Softy, Dominic, Yard Animal, Callum, Dimitri, Thomas, Alex, Liam, Daniel, Raymond, Panzer, Patrick, Jared, Sam, Ivanosaurus, Sletton, Danielle, Faster Than Jesus, Not Yet Lemon, Ronan B, T.O, JJ Rod, Pranav, Farida, Chris, Pankin, FJTY, and Joy Sebastian. I will catch you in the week, my next video. I've got a couple of ideas. I'm not sure which one I'm going to go for, actually. No, I think I know what I'm going to go for. I think I've got a good one cooking. I've got a bunch of ideas. Got some good ideas get written down. It's just having the time to execute. But I've got my track day tomorrow, so wish me luck. Hopefully I don't crash and end my life. Pleasure as always. Minton's in bed. I'm going to bed now. Thanks again. Have a good one. Drink water. Bye everyone. Thank you for the super chats as well.